Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions in the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. On this show, I interview lawyers ditching the billable hour and experts who can help attorneys move beyond billing time. Thanks to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes. More on them later, and use the code LawSubscribed when signing up. You get 10% off, and it supports the show. The best way to support the show is to share it with someone you know. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. I'm thrilled to have with me on today's episode of Law Subscribed, Tom Martin from LawDroid. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matthew. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you on. I feel like we've known each other, I think, only for a little over a year now, but it feels like a heck of a lot longer in the era of post-pandemic and AI. So while I know a lot about what you do, and you've presented for the Solo Small Firm Committee that I co-chair for the Chicago Bar Association, just in case my listeners haven't come across you yet, go ahead and give yourself a little introduction.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm a lawyer, author, and also legal tech entrepreneur. I've been a lawyer for a little over 25 years. Crazy to say that. But I created a little company called LawDroid 8 years ago and slowly been building that. And we help lawyers to supercharge their law firms.
And even before you got to LawDroid, or maybe this was part of LawDroid's early journey, talk a little bit about what got you into, to practicing law, to becoming legal tech founder and that problem you were trying to solve.
Yeah, I've always had a passion for computers. Like even way back in the day, I used to program in BASIC on an Atari. And so when I became a lawyer, like naturally, I wanted to use that interest in helping me to do my job more easily and more quickly. I launched my own solo practice in 2006. So all of the same issues that your listeners are probably facing or have faced in starting your own practice and trying to grow, but not really having a budget for growing and trying to stretch those dollars. That's what I did. I created these technological tools to help me do more with less.
And then I got to ask, because you're on the podcast Law Subscribed and you had a solo practice, Tom, are you billing your time?
You mean like, am I billing by the hour?
Yeah, like when you had started your solo practice way back when, were you billing hours? Was that your business model, as was and is the primary model private practice attorneys use today?
So yes and no. When I first started, I was doing some PI work.
Yeah.
So it was a contingency, and I might bill hourly for some stuff that would be kind of, off the beaten path. But it was contingency then for the first couple of years. But then after that, it was almost entirely flat fee.
Mm-hmm.
About 12 years ago, I was one of the first law firms to work with LegalZoom, and we put together a product to sell prenups throughout the country. And in doing that, I employed document automation. LegalZoom was marketing the product, and I had over a dozen lawyers nationwide that were working with me, where I was mostly like the operations guy, coordinating everyone with creating prenups based off of answers that people were giving to questionnaires, and then making sure that we delivered on time. And so that was a flat fee product. And partly from the involvement in that, it really made me fall in love with the approach to optimizing, becoming efficient, charging a flat fee, but because of the efficiencies, you build in a profit margin.
Right. Yeah, it's great to hear that story. And of course, contingency lawyers are also trying to be as efficient with their time as possible.
Right.
So it lends itself to not billing time if you move out of that work. But wow, the prenups with LegalZoom, talk about before its time, right? Because LegalZoom has just pivoted to, I think, just business docs now, right? They're not doing the independent, individual style, contracts anymore, I don't think.
No, they've narrowed down their business to small businesses, incorporations, LLCs. That was always their strength, right. But now they've really focused on that. Kind of like the personal legal stuff, they peeled that away. They do have a network of lawyers that helps people with various things that as business owners might come up. So it might be outside of small business, but yeah, a company now that's essentially mimicking the model that we established over a dozen years ago is Hello Prenup. It's exactly the same thing that we were doing. And actually the pricing that they're employing and the different step ups and upgrades are what we were doing. And it worked back then, but it is a little precarious doing prenups because you never know. I do get calls now like a dozen years later where people are getting divorced and they're like, do you have a copy of my prenup? And, so I'm glad that we kind of pivoted away from that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm one of the panel attorneys for Illinois for Hello Prenup. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, you bet I'm holding on to copies of those prenups. But prenups is it's like it's not an insignificant percentage of my business. And so more people, and I think timing matters too, right? Because it was a fantastic idea at the time, but I think the opinion around prenups has totally changed, especially as more and more people are children themselves of divorce getting married, and they saw what that process looks like without a prenup. I think that's where there's been like a cultural shift. But really fascinating that that's kind of that it got started in prenups, and now like yeah, there's companies dedicated to that now. So and you've also done some stuff with with California with like access to justice and chatbots and stuff, right? You want to talk a little bit about that too?
Oh yeah. Like, over the past 8 years of building LawDroid, part of our primary business has been working with legal aid organizations across the country: Tennessee, Kansas, Colorado, Florida, the State Bar of Arizona, courts in Louisiana, and California. And it's a really great marriage, right? Because when you think about it, legal aid organizations, they have the same constraints that solo practitioners that charge on a flat fee or subscription basis do, right? They have a limited budget, they have a limited amount of time, and but they also have a huge demand for their services. Tens of thousands of people calling in. I think North Carolina, which we're also working with right now, they had 300,000 phone calls come into their service center, and I think they were only able to connect with 100,000, right? So like there's a big scaling problem. And our technology is all about scaling. It's all about taking domain expertise. It's all about taking processes and then automating them to make it possible to scale. And so putting those two things together, you could provide, virtualized services, legal information, generative AI, synthetic answers to questions, and meet that demand.
I have to imagine that, in the early days when you didn't have like Gen AI that you could use to leverage the tool, it was just a totally different world. And then when, November 2022 hit, it was like a shot of like a super serum into like what you're able to now accomplish, right? Like what was that like when that happened?
Magical. It was magical. Um, yeah, our system up till that point was built on what's now called good old fashioned AI, right? Conditional logic. You press yes, it goes down this route. No, it goes down a different route. But even with that, we were able to build very robust systems that, and that's pretty much all you need for a lot of like form filling and microservices. Take the answers, you fill out forms. It's not brain surgery.
Hmm.
The Gen AI layer, it allowed you to be more unstructured. So we all experience as lawyers, somebody calls in, what do they want to do? They want to tell their story. And it's almost impossible to stop them, right, from telling their story. And instead of fighting that, Gen AI allows us to lean into it. We could take all of that in. For example, we can connect one of our AI chatbots to a phone system. It can talk to a person. The person tells their story. Then we run that through a Gen AI layer to extract the information that we need from them so that it happens naturally, just like we would, as opposed to forcing them through question by question by question.
Yeah. So, consumer client experience has improved. And because there were definitely limitations to the chatbots that like you ran into that, right? Like back before Gen AI. But now, sometimes I feel like I could like even in like these like intercom things on like non-lawyer like websites, I could tell when they've integrated Gen AI, and I am kind of getting to what I need to get to sooner. And I used to just be like human representative, human representative, right? And
Yeah.
now it's like it's made a big difference even outside of the legal space. So what I also want to know, and then we'll get into the product how as it looks today, is like a little over a year ago, or about a year ago, it had been 4 months since Gen AI, since ChatGPT 3.5 hit the scene. 4 was on the horizon. They were telling us about, But you were already teaching us at ABA Tech Show, like all about LLMs and tokens and the way they work. Like, how the heck did you get up to speed so quickly on all that?
Curiosity, like fascination. We were incorporating the systems
Yeah.
at that point, so I had to learn about it. I mean, we were experimenting with GPT-3 prior to ChatGPT dropping in November, and it just wasn't there yet. It wasn't, like it wasn't fluent. It was helpful, but it wasn't where we wanted it to be to add it as a layer to the LawDroid platform. So when it dropped, it was all about speed, about learning it, understanding it. And as with a lot of things with LawDroid, it's been iterative. We've, added layer upon layer over time. And so when we started, we were just connected to, the ChatGPT API through OpenAI, and we're using prompting, but we hadn't employed RAG yet. We hadn't added, additional measures to it to really dial in its usefulness. But I really encourage people that are listening to this to experiment. It's okay to jump into something, and only sometimes by doing that do you get to understand the limitations and then things you need to add on, not to worry so much about doing it perfectly the first time. And, I certainly learned a lot from that experience. And, I wish we had a special relationship with OpenAI like some other companies did and had a year head start and all that. But I think we got up to speed, fairly quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've heard what Case Tech's founders talk about, how like they saw GPT-4 before 3.5 was even released or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And look, there are pros and cons about that, right? Because when you are a first mover with a new piece of technology, people see a lot of what doesn't work too. So maybe it's for
Yeah.
the best.
And
So
I just want to be clear about one thing. They have an amazing product. Like
yeah,
they were also in the game for a long time before this became a thing. And I think they executed wonderfully, obviously, as proven by the value that they were able to achieve.
yeah, that they were required for. I think that
Yeah.
number speaks for itself, right? Or
Yeah.
the supposed the number we think they sold for. Another thing, I just want to point out, just let it be known in case it hasn't been claimed anywhere else before, but I'm pretty sure LawDroid was the first company to use Copilot as the terminology of leveraging Gen AI as an attorney in particular. Am I right there?
Yeah, you are right about that, but not within the entire space, right? So like
Right.
I was inspired by GitHub Copilot
Mhm.
because GitHub Copilot was bringing to, developers, software developers, this idea of working with an AI to help them do more with less. And so I thought, well, LawDroid Copilot makes a lot of sense for lawyers. And then, of course, Microsoft came onto the scene and pretty much ditched everyone else. So, yeah,
I know, I know. Well, I guess maybe it's a good thing that you can't own a trademark to Copilot, because you could still use it, and it still explains in a word like how, like, even the idea of how to use the tool. So you came out with LawDroid Copilot. Like, what is it, and has that even changed over like the last year or so that it's been released?
oh, it's definitely changed. It's definitely upgraded over the past year. And yeah, so LawDroid Copilot is an AI legal assistant that allows you to conduct legal research, document analysis, and a number of other tools that really help you to supercharge your law firm and do more work in a less amount of time and with less effort. So I'm happy to show you a demo of some of those functions whenever you want to, but I think that, it really is putting everything together that we developed over the past 8 years. Like the platform that we have that existed before LawDroid Copilot is called LawDroid Builder, and you can basically build any kind of AI assistant with it. And so as an example of something robust and sophisticated that you could create, we built LawDroid Copilot on our own platform. So in a way, it's kind of an example of what you could do with our system.
So this was kind of like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in any way of understanding this, but like eventually because I remember you talking about that, I'm talking about LawDroid Builder, but when ChatGPT launched their build your own GPT or whatever, I mean, LawDroid was already kind of doing that before OpenAI was doing that, right?
Yeah, we were doing that for a whole like year and a half before they launched the GPT store. And it was one of those like, dough moments. But the thing is that with our system, because it's a hybrid, right? Because we have the good old fashioned AI conditional logic under the hood, as well as the Gen AI.
Hmm.
Our system, I believe, is still, of course I'm going to say this, but I believe it's superior because you still have the fine grained controls of the conditional logic under the hood and analytics that accompany the Gen AI. So like with our system, you can create these bots that can do the same things as and by the way, open to the public. You don't have to have a ChatGPT subscription,
Right.
but it could do all of the same things. But then you can have analytics, you can have archives of the conversations, and you can build in conditional logic and link up to third-party systems. So it's a much more robust solution.
And sort of like we've learned with using these tools like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, they're for the masses, right? They're trained on all the data that's not specific to any particular industry, right? And so, LawDroid, I mean, it's in the name, right? But I mean, can anybody just come and build something on LawDroid, or is it really, even if that's true, it's really for the legal industry?
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is my domain. I'm familiar with legal, so like everything we've done is to fine tune it for legal. We have an integration with, US federal and state case law. That's part of it. You can brief cases in this thing. You can, blue book your citations. So all of the features are with a practicing lawyer in mind. And we also, by the way, I should mention, are model agnostic. So we do use OpenAI, but we now also have, Claude and some open source models that we have, and we're going to be adding on Cohere. So it's very important to us to use a model that's fit to purpose.
Cohere. This is a new one for me. What is that just another LLM that's out there, or what is that?
Yeah, it's another LLM. It's been out for a while.
Okay.
Actually, the founder, his name escapes me at the moment, but he was part of the original, Transformer paper that came out. And so he has a considerable amount of background, and they just take a slightly different approach than OpenAI does, but it's extremely effective. And then Claude, is, with its reports and studies it just came out with, claims to exceed GPT-4 in terms of its accuracy and performance. So
Right.
it's kind of an embarrassment of riches right now. We have these companies that are making these extremely powerful models. Who knows what OpenAI is going to come out with next? I don't know if you saw the video with, the robot that was created by Figure that's powered by OpenAI speech models. And
It's an
yeah,
open tab right now. I haven't gotten to it yet, Tom, but I saw that email come through, and I opened up that video. I know, and Claude 3 released around the time of recording, and I have barely just been able to start playing around with everything it's capable of now.
yeah. And this is just a year on from ChatGPT, and a year from now, it's just accelerating. There was a posting on LinkedIn where there was a study by someone who was analyzing the speed at which these improvements are happening and comparing it to Moore's law. And Moore's law, for those that might not know, is where you have a doubling of computer processing power. I think it's around every 16 months. And that's what's led to us being able to have these supercomputers on our phones and all that. Well, the advancement of AI capability has been several factors, several multiples of that in the past year. So that's why, we're seeing what we're seeing is also like there's not a physical limitation. With Moore's law, you have silicon, right? Which like you actually have a physical barrier that's you have to engineer how to put more chips into a smaller space. But when it comes to AI, you're not talking about a physical limitation. You're just talking about technical limitations. And so they're blowing through those very quickly. And yeah, I don't know. I think anybody that predicts for you how things are going to be even 5 years from now is just making it up.
Yeah, humans have a hard time perceiving exponential growth because we live such linear lives, right? And linear growth. And we're
Yeah.
living in an exponential world now more than we've ever lived in it before.
Yeah. What other, generation of people can claim that.
I mean, I have a 92-year-old grandmother. I think there were still a few horse and buggies around when she was like a newborn child, right? I mean, there are people alive today, right, that saw the whole thing happen in terms of technological advancement. It's sort of unbelievable where we're at right now. Which brings me back to LawDroid, and the fact that it's able to plug into all these incredible tools, is I think useful for the listeners to know. Something that I've kind of wondered about, and I've been able to ask this of a few guests now. At the time of recording, there's episodes aren't live, but like, for example, Claude has this like the largest context window as far as I understand it. So like if I'm using LawDroid, whether it's something I've built there or Copilot, you said now you're model agnostic. So like if I load up like a 600 something page franchise disclosure document, like how does that work? Like it taps into Claude at that point because it needs a larger context window. Like obviously without giving away the secret sauce, but like when you say model agnostic, like how does that even really work?
Well, to make it easier for the people using our system, we make those choices for them,
Mhm.
right? So like when we engineer it on the background, on the back end, for document processing, we're more likely to use Claude as the model because of the context window. Gemini, by the way, is like over 1 million. So like there are like, I believe that's correct. I hope I didn't misread that, but it's
No, I think I did see something like their context window is ridiculous, though I've not been able
yeah.
to personally test it like I have with Claude.
Yeah, so we're gonna test that out. Haven't had the pleasure yet of doing that,
Mhm.
but we try to find the right model for each purpose, right? So OpenAI right now for language translation, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
There is an open source model that might be better. We haven't tested that one yet. So we kind of are testing different models for different purposes, but it just so happens Claude with its context window deals really well with large documents. So we kind of pick and choose, and we put the thing that we do for lawyers is that I understand that AI is intimidating, that it's frustrating a little bit to deal with, and so we try to make it as easy as possible to use it. We've reduced prompts to buttons. So instead of a lawyer having to learn prompt engineering, you don't have to do that. We've done that for you behind the scenes. You just press a button to summarize what kind of summarization you want, and it'll do it for you.
Yeah, I think there's a massive market of lawyers who are not, they're afraid of the prompt engineering thing. And so I think that's a huge relief to hear them say that. But what about lawyers like me who like a little prompt engineering? Do I still have the option to go in and do that?
Of course you do. We so one of the buttons is for something we call a free-form prompt,
Okay.
and that's a direct connection to GPT-4. And if you become a prompt engineer yourself, you can employ whatever custom prompts that you want to. And the way I see LawDroid is that we are a guide for lawyers that want to dip their toes into AI and they want to learn this space. We launched LawDroid University, which has free courses for lawyers to learn more about AI. We have all of the sessions from the first LawDroid conference. There's a keynote and 6 sessions from great speakers about AI. And I'm putting in all of the episodes of the podcast with different, people working in the space that know a good deal about this. And I'm also doing a 5-part webinar series about generative AI for lawyers. So I'm truly dedicated to educating lawyers about this and helping them to use these tools to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, links to all the resources that you just mentioned in the show notes, so people could go check that out. Yeah, it's incredible times. I mean, I'm having this debate on LinkedIn right now. It's like kind of a debate, but I'm curious to get your perspective of it. And that is, in light of like what LawDroid is capable of helping lawyers do, how long do you see the billable hour, still sticking around as the primary way private practice attorneys will charge their clients?
Not long. As evidence of that, because we've all been saying that for many, many years,
Sure.
because we've hoped it would be true, because the model actually also reflects a lot of like stress and long hours that people are forced to go through to to churn more profits from the billable hour. So there's negative human side effects from it. But the evidence of it being true that the billable hour will likely go away is this recent AmLaw survey of the top 100 law firms. There was a quote in there where a partner at an AmLaw 100 firm was talking about the effect on the billable hour and how, because of the efficiency gains from using these generative AI tools, that it's impossible to hide that, right? It's impossible not to reflect that in the billing, and also that the people that are hiring them, a lot of the in-house attorneys that are overseeing what the law firms are doing, are demanding, more affordable pricing because of the efficiency gains. One thing that cuts against that I'll mention is that there was another quote from another partner who was saying, yes, it provides efficiency gains, but mostly on the stuff that's really busy work. And because of the efficiency gains on the busy work, it's allowed us to spend the same amount of time that we would have spent on the busy work, but on deeper issues. So that's one way that the billable hour might sustain itself in the short term, is that it's freeing up lawyers to do deeper work, which is great. But I think over a longer period of time, it's gonna have to collapse on itself.
When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional-only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high-quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at 650.com, and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form and scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice, but with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show. Yeah, I think those efficiencies have diminishing returns in terms of billing your time. Because we talked about the exponential growth of this technology. I mean, eventually those time savings are going to eclipse, any potential additional kind of quality of work. So then, what becomes the purpose of the lawyer then at that point? Well, it's to judge the outcome, right? The output, right? Even Tom, you're working on making the input even easier for us. I think that's still going to be valuable. And, deciding which prompt to put in, whether I'm just clicking a button or I'm doing a custom prompt or a combination, or sequential prompting or sequential, conversation with the input. And then it's that analysis of the output, which is going to take just significantly less time than the whole project used to take. That's where the true value, the subject matter experts that we are as attorneys, I think that's the ultimate value that we're going to provide. And then still telling the client, well, here's what the AI said. Here's what I think. And then there's value there, but that just doesn't take a lot of time, right?
It may not take as much time, but it does provide a lot of value.
Yes.
Right. And, Jordan Furlong also wrote an article about what's left. And I think he was talking about to supervise and to accompany. And I also think similarly that, providing peace of mind, to be there as a guide, because we understand the lay of the land and how these things work, we provide that to our clients still, even after AI. They need our judgment. They need our understanding and the fact that we've been there before.
Yeah. I mean, previously, I'm just thinking about one of the ways I've been using the tools now is, I can query against whether a contract violates, any potentially, even if there's an inkling that there might be some sort of violation or noncompliance with Illinois law. And what would I've had to do before? pay an army of associates to read and memorize all of the laws and then check the contract again. It would have been an impossible task. And now I still can't, because to have humans do that is still so not feasible. Like, I can't perfectly say that the AI is doing it right, but it's doing it better and faster and cheaper than any humans would have been able to do that kind of a task. And if it does, like, red flag some things for me, now the human could go put human eyes on that statute or that case law and compare it against the contract. Where to get to that point would have taken days, weeks, months, before the world of AI. This is the power of the tool, right? Like, what other ways are you seeing like LawDroid being utilized by attorneys that are doing previously impossible or prohibitively expensive tasks?
So we've talked a lot about, or, touched on the surface of like all of the legal, like practice of law stuff it could do, but it also can significantly contribute to the business of law. All right. So like the non-billable stuff, that's extremely important to getting the clients in the first place, right? You might not be able to bill a lead for talking to them, but certainly that lead is going to become a client, and then you earn money from dealing with the client. And so from the get-go, LawDroid has been really good about helping lawyers to capture leads on their website, to start that, sales conversation. We do have different AI agents that you could spin up on LawDroid Builder. You can create a lead capture bot that actively is engaging people. We have an intake chatbot that allows you to interview clients and get the information you need to start their case. We also have one that has native document automation, where, kind of like with the prenup situation, you would assign the bot to actually interview the client, capture all the answers, then populate that work product, including using conditional logic. So not just filling in the blanks, but also like inserting a paragraph if it applies, not including it if it doesn't apply, and then emailing that work product to the lawyer so that in anticipation of their meeting with the client, they have it done, dialed into about 85%. They have that conversation to cement that relationship, and then they polish it up, and they're good to go, making a lot more money with the time that they've spent on it. So these kinds of, business of law things we've been solving for along the way, and really help lawyers for the billable and the non-billable stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, that's super interesting. And it makes me wonder if the Hello Prenup co-founders would like to find a way to integrate that with their system. Because I think right now it's just the users go on and fill out a form, and then it auto-populates the document, sort of traditional document automation, I think is what they're doing. So I don't know if they're able to, and who knows? Like, I don't know. I'm just one of the panel lawyers. They might be trying to work on something in the background with conversational AI to do something. So who knows? But
Yeah.
happy to make an intro to the co-founders, Tom, and see if we could get something like that going. And that would even go against like one of the things that they offer is like a $100 conversation with an attorney to answer questions that the form can't answer for you. And if you do integrate a Gen AI chatbot there, I mean, they might be able to answer, they can't give legal advice, so that the people might still want the legal advice, but it might be able to answer your question for you. So like for them selling their product of an automated, prenup, it's sort of a no-brainer kind of an integration, I think.
True, but people, I think, still appreciate and value like getting that input from a lawyer.
Yeah.
Puts them a little bit at ease. Yeah.
Yeah, and something I have to do, I mean, I don't have to do it, but I'm definitely encouraged to do it, in particular with my state and the way our law works around enforceable prenups, is during that conversation, I have an opportunity to explain the case law around prenups and enforceability, and that they should really hire me for full representation. And so as much as it is a useful call, it's also kind of a waste of the client's money, because they should have just hired me for full representation, right?
Mhm.
And so maybe we just get to that part sooner than
Yeah.
if we don't have to have that $100 conversation ahead of time. So you mentioned intake and sales conversations. Does LawDroid like integrate with payments like Stripe or something like that? Like, can I do that, or would that still be like a separate process from the LawDroid platform?
So we have some fantastic integrations. You can integrate payments. So the chatbot could actually, after that sales conversation, close them, take payment, and then forward them into your case management system, because we also integrate with Zapier through a webhook that we set up also. And through Zapier, 6,000 applications we integrate with. We have a native integration with Clio Grow and Clio Manage, if you happen to use that. And yeah, one other thing that we have is the ability to create knowledge bases. So now with generative AI, if you want to upload documents and have it answer questions on the fly, it's as easy as, point and click with our system. So like there's really amazing integrations that make this platform so much more robust, and you can really build it to fit any use case you have.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because one of the biggest values that a subscription-based attorney can offer is access to a knowledge base as a subscriber benefit. And so now you're saying that I could have either myself or a client query against the knowledge base?
Yeah, and we've reduced that to a template. So like one thing we have in LawDroid Builder is because it's kind of scary if you have the blank page. How do I build this stuff, Tom? Like, what do I have to do? And then, we shortcut it by creating these templates. One of them is a generative AI Q&A bot template. So with one click, it creates the bot, and all you need to do is upload your documents, and then it would answer questions on the fly based upon the source materials you provide to it using, you know, using a RAG pattern, retrieval-augmented generation of using those documents as its knowledge base. And we've also like restrained it so that if the answer is not within the four corners of that information, it's simply going to say, I don't know. It's not going to guess. It's not going to hallucinate. It's just going to stick to the facts. And that's what we want it to do.
Right, right. So important for like the legal AI tools to be able to do that. Because of all these cases where these lawyers are getting in trouble with where they're using Gen AI and it's hallucinating cases. I mean, it's created such hesitation in the profession to use these tools, but those lawyers were never using the tools the way they were made to be used in the first place. And so it's great to hear you say that. But like in light of all that press, like I know, again, I don't like this term non-lawyers. I know like people in other industries. I know people in other industries and just everyday people who are like asking me about like, hey, what'd you think about those lawyers who used AI and got in trouble? So that you're here, hearing you say that you're using RAG and it's not, it's just going to say I don't know if it doesn't know. And it's not going to make up cases if the cases don't exist. I mean, that's a huge win for lawyers, but it's an important feature that LawDroid is making sure that it's offering to the users. Speaking of that, the business model of LawDroid. How does LawDroid make money? What's its business model?
So there's a few different, streams of revenue. One of which is, as I mentioned, we worked with legal aid over the past 8 years. And so kind of a contract service type business with legal aid, which has been really rewarding in multiple different ways. But also like with the subscription platform that we have, LawDroid Copilot and the LawDroid Builder platform, it appeals to solo, small, and medium firms. And that's really our focus is solo and smalls, because most important, mostly because that's where I've come from. That's where I'm at. And I understand, what lawyers need. And we've really been building this to make it as accessible as possible for lawyers to get into generative AI. But in terms of the numbers, Copilot, I position that at $19 per month after a 7-day trial, right? So you get to kick the tires for a week, see if it's going to work for you. And then if it does, stick with us for $19 a month. So $1 less than ChatGPT, right? So you save $1, but what you get is so much more because we do have a direct connection to GPT-4. Why pay for the subscription to ChatGPT? You could just use our system, right, for the direct connection, but then you have case law research that's attached to it, the document analysis and summarization, and then a whole bunch of other tools like a Swiss Army knife that you could use as a lawyer to get your work done. LawDroid Builder, which you can build all of these fantastic custom AI solutions, that's $99 a month after a 7-day free trial.
And I'm seeing on here that you're also, I mean, you don't outright say it, but you're also kind of competing with Grammarly, right? Because it says grammar check, citation check, emotional support, brainstorm content. Because even Grammarly just came out saying, like, I think like they're launching like brainstorming like stuff too now with Grammarly.
Oh, really?
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not purposely. I mean, just seemed to me that, something people need is a grammar check. The emotional support, I get so much of a response from that because the purpose of that is if somebody's working late, I've been there before myself. you don't want to talk to the partner about being stressed out and, having deadlines and all that. And it actually does a really good job of being empathetic and walking you through the situation you're in and sharing those feelings and even giving you some helpful tips about how to attack the problem. So
If
I
there's
don't
one thing our profession needs more of, it's EQ.
for sure.
No, I mean, very, very cool that's even, it's listed as a subscription benefit, to Copilot, which is great. So then I got to ask, because we're on the Law Subscribed podcast, this is legal tech, and it uses the subscription model. Why the subscription model?
Oh, well, Matthew.
I know, but I want you to say why.
It's it's predictable. You can dial in your systems about how to start conversations with people that leads to ultimately a conversion of them coming on board. And the sales conversation, the conversion, you know, hopefully no churn down the road, but those words that we use kind of like within the tech startup space, it's really about having a community, and it's really about having good relationships with people, friendships, right? That's really what it's about. And I think if you view it that way, it becomes more of what it is, and you meet people more where they are versus the like business MBA speak. Because and it also, it comes from a more authentic place too, because that's what you're trying to do is you're trying to help people, be a guide to help them along their journey and provide value. And but anyways, it's rewarding in that way, but also like financially when you bring people in, they can support your efforts. And then by them supporting your efforts, you could do more, and then more people benefit from that and come on board. So it is the flywheel that you create.
Right.
And that's only possible through a subscription type of relationship. If it's just a one-off thing, you can't really amplify in the same way.
Yeah, and you highlighted an interesting thing that I just want to point out. It's the way that you think about it, and I think that a lot of subscription businesses should think about it more, and that is the membership aspect of the subscription model, right? You said community, but sometimes the subscription economy is called the membership economy. And there's different ways to approach that. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do it for my firm because I did call my law firm Subscription Attorney LLC. So I'm kind of stuck with that terminology. But yeah, the membership model, it's a community model. And in particular with technology, although I think this is true for law as well, but we talked about how all this technology is changing and you're upgrading your systems, you're integrating with more LLMs, you're doing all these things. And so that's providing more and more value over time. So it makes sense to be subscribed and to pay as those upgrades come. There's changes in the law that happen. That could be the single reason for a type of client to be subscribed as changes in the law occur and you need to update their handbooks. You need to update their contracts. There are all these contracts with non-competes in there that might become irrelevant soon. Like within like a month from now, like by the end of April, we'll know what the FTC has decided on the non-competes and if it will be retroactive or not, right? And so like things like that, like there's all kinds of changes in the law. Privacy law is changing all the freaking time, right? So there's value, like even we as lawyers have that kind of ongoing things as the laws change, as the laws update. And so it's just an analogy that I wanted to point out. And there's a reason you don't have like a usage fee for the more you use Copilot, the more you're paying, LawDroid, right? Like it's
Right.
nonsensical.
Right. And I 100% agree with you that people rely on us as lawyers because they don't know about changes in the law. But for us to keep them updated, and by keeping them updated, keeping them safe from risk, they're willing to pay for that.
Right. It's just about pricing it right. Right. It's just about pricing it right. And, your prices, are very solo small firm friendly, which you're just not getting a lot of in this legal tech space, in particular, as some of these AI tools that I've played around with have pivoted from selling to firms to selling to in-house because firms are billing their time and it's taking away from billable hours. And it's easier to sell to in-house attorneys that care more about efficiency. Right. And so, have you had to have any of those discussions with potential law firms or solos using LawDroid and then asking, well, what happens if is that going to get rid of billable time for me? I don't know if you've had, maybe the attorneys who come to you are already sort of on the other side of that fence. I don't know.
So I think there's kind of a natural selection that happens because first off, we're not going, LawDroid is not after like the AmLaw 100. They have Harvey, they have case text. We're going for solo smalls. And the ones that kind of naturally select themselves to have a conversation with me or even be interested are the ones that see value in efficiency gains, right? Or they see value in understanding AI and making it work for them rather than just being, intimidated by it. So like everyone that I talk to has already made that choice. And so the ones I'm talking to, it makes a lot of sense for them and we can help them. So the ones that have an issue with like, this is going to, eradicate the billable hour at my firm. I don't want that to happen. I'm going to hold on for dear life until I can't anymore. They're not reaching out.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, hasn't really come up as a problem.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that term, self-selection, right? Like they, the right lawyers are finding LawDroid and vice versa. That's good. Well, time flew by. I knew it was going to with you, Tom. So I have to ask you the last question that I ask all my guests, why people stay around to the end of the show. And that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
Oh my God. You really blindsided me with that one. Is a hot dog a sandwich? And why? I would have to say, because I'm forced to answer this thing, is I think it is. I think it is because it is bread that encloses meat, and that's kind of my abstract idea of a sandwich. It's not two separate slices of bread, which would make it even more on point to be a sandwich. And then occasionally you do put relish, which is a kind of lettuce analog in there, and ketchup and mustard, and if you're in Copenhagen, you might put some mayonnaise on there too. So like, yes, I think it's more of a sandwich.
Yeah, you really got into the condiments there. It made me think of something I haven't heard at almost 100 recorded episodes, which is also there's a chili cheese dog, which has cheese on it. And cheese you normally associate with a sandwich too, right?
Right.
Yeah. I never thought like so between meat and cheese and hot dogs or cheddar dogs, I think yeah, maybe that does lean more. I don't know. I'm not the arbiter of what is and isn't a sandwich. I just think it's a fun question to ask. And
For sure.
And maybe then people can they could try out at least the free trial of LawDroid Copilot, and they could ask Copilot is a hot dog a sandwich and see what it says, and ask it about the case law around that too, and see what it says there. So if people wanted to do that, Tom, if people wanted to sign up, what's the best way for them to sign up for LawDroid or get in touch with you?
Yeah, we make it easy. So you just go to lawdroid.com and you could watch some videos. You don't have to get on the Zoom with me to do a demo. You could watch your own demo on the website. And if you want to subscribe, you just point and click and you can jump on board. I'm also going to give you a link to that demo so that you could share that. It shows the motion analysis that you could do through LawDroid, and it's pretty cool. Also, I would love for you to follow what I'm up to, and I provide you with insights and information about the intersection of law and technology at LawDroidManifesto.com, which is my Substack. And I just really look forward to continuing the conversation. And I love what you're doing, Matthew. Providing a ton of value to lawyers that are doing flat fees and subscriptions. That is the future. So you're in the right place.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And I can tell my listeners I'm a subscriber to the LawDroid Manifesto, and it's always great when your posts come out. So also highly recommend that. Tom Martin, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Matthew.
And that's our show. Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for being sponsors. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with somebody you think would find value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email Kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.